Hey, welcome to this episode of Ruff Talk VR. Today we have two guests today that I think they're going to bring a lot of good insight and a lot of fun into the conversation. You know, they're Philip. He's a developer of a new game called Bounce Shot. And we're also joined with Natasha, the VP of Operations for For Fun Labs. And what's great about this isn't just a game that came out of nowhere. First game ever released on the store for the studio. No, they have one of the most popular I almost want to say sports simulation games.
It's recommended no matter whether you play sports or not, though.
Yeah, and it's true to table tennis. You know, we're talking about 11 table tennis.
Oh, you said it right.
Yeah, so we had a bad mix-up on the podcast back in the early days where we said Elvin table tennis. Don't ask. Once we start saying something wrong, there's no digging ourselves out of that hole. So that's one of the best, true to life games. People have played that game and said it will improve you in table tennis. Mm-hmm. It's fun. It has a dedicated multiplayer audience and it's, endlessly replayable. So they have a lot of experience coming into Bounce Shot. But before we get into the 100 questions we have about Bounce Shot and how you went from table tennis to kind of a beer pong-esque game, do you two mind to introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us about your roles at For Fun Labs and, working on Bounce Shot?
My name is Philip. I'm a developer on Bounce Shot. So, I primarily do software development, but I also do some of the artwork stuff. So,
awesome. How about yourself, Natasha?
Yep, I'm Natasha Fahey. I'm our VP of Operations at For Fun Labs. So I oversee all of our business operations, HR, finance, all that really fun stuff. And then I also help with our game operations, release schedules, prioritization, et cetera.
Understood. And did both of you come into For Fun Labs for Bounce Shot, or were you part of the team that was working on 11 table tennis and then transferred over to Bounce Shot?
Yeah, so I came in to For Fun Labs from another VR company, and the initial drive wasn't like, hey, come work on Bounce Shot. It was more just, come to For Fun Labs. But Bounce Shot was the main product that we were that I was assigned to, and I've been working on Bounce Shot since then. So,
understood. How about yourself, Natasha?
So I came into For Fun Labs to really work across the company. So I work across, all of our business units and oversee, a lot with 11 table tennis and spend probably majority of my time there. But then, of course, Bounce Shot is now going to take up more time. And then, of course, we have pickleball in development as well.
Pickleball.
Yeah,
pickleball came out of nowhere.
I'm waiting for someone to do it properly, and hearing that your studio is going to work on making a pickleball. I already know in my head the physics are going to be good. I mean, we can jump back to 11 table tennis. It works phenomenally. So I can already envision how well it's going to be with pickleball.
Yeah, I imagine you've taken the hardest part of designing this game.
I'm very excited after hearing that. That's freaking awesome.
I can't help but feel like the physics is some of the hardest part, and that's something that 11 tables tennis shines in. So It's like once you've nailed that part, I'm sure you can probably answer it a little bit better than my assumptions of how much it transfers over to one game to another. But I can't help but feel like you've gotten over a big hurdle,
the hardest part of the physics
for each game going forward. So having the physics so nailed in as an outsider, I can't help but feel like, all right, you're able to just go, here's Bounce Shot, here's pickleball, here's whatever other game we want to do involving bouncing, throwing, and physics. So
as if they did baseball.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about you guys like you're not here now.
Just exploiting your talents. The baseball. So
it is,
but
here's that. I've got an issue with baseball games, whether it's flat screen or definitely in the VR space. It's like I haven't seen a good one in decades. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about it before. It's like I would play a baseball game if there was a really well-made baseball. I know of one in VR that's fun, but nobody's really hit the
nail on the head with it.
No.
Sports Scramble didn't do it for you.
So to kind of go, we'll circle back to Bounce Shot, but was pickleball an idea that you came up due to the soaring popularity out of nowhere, or was that something that you have had thought about since, maybe before pickleball suddenly exploded in 2023?
I think it has been a thought of, for the company in general, right? We're really good at racket sports. And, I think with how popular pickleball is and also the lack of training tools for individuals, It seems like a perfect fit for what we do really well, creating individual training programs and, trying to create that realistic simulation that we do so well in 11 table tennis.
Well, not to mention the esports side of it too, with a game like that, because you're coming out of the gate and it's already popular with everyone.
Absolutely. So we'll circle back to.
No, I made a big fat note on pickleball.
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure if you're familiar with too, but 11 table tennis was in the esport Olympics as well. So it's been competed at the highest level.
Yeah, to me that's one of the shining examples of
dude.
Esports
how long
games.
Would you last against like a pro? Right?
No. Not happening.
I'm not even trying.
I have fun in the game. I'm not too good at it. Not on that level at all. But for people who are, it's like it's so true to life that you can have a lot of fun.
I've seen some footage of some of the players, and it's sick.
So to kind of go to each of you for a second, I always like to start at the beginning and better understand how we got to today. So most people that we've talked to who work in VR, it's not something they went into because it pays the most amount of money or anything like that. It's because they've discovered VR, they fell in love with it, and then they transitioned into the industry. So for each one of you, how did you discover VR and, decide to go into that professionally?
I go all the way back to the DK2. I don't know if you guys recognize that headset.
Yep.
That was when Oculus was first coming out with their VR, back when Palmer, showed it off. I was watching all those videos on YouTube, and I was working as a software engineer in general. And I just thought that was really cool. It's really what I wanted to do, especially seeing people's reactions to that online. The immersion you can get in VR was really what I wanted out of video games in general. So I bought a DK2 way back in the day. My favorite game was, it wasn't actually a game, it was just a Windlands demo. So it since became a very popular game, Windlands, but they released this demo along with a lot of other people that were just kind of releasing free demos for people to try out, to experiment with back in the early days of VR. And I'm someone who luckily has almost no VR sickness when you move me around. So that just kind of worked out. I kind of remember showing all of my family, trying to get them in, like, oh, you got to try this experience. It's great. And they just almost puked, every single one of them, because every single, at the time I didn't realize, people were complaining about VR sickness and stuff. I was like, I feel fine. I've been in here for hours. But then everyone I showed was kind of puking immediately. But I love that experience so much that, I just try to move into a company that was doing that, and I did. So,
oh geez, and how long ago did you start working in it? Did you start working in it in the DK2 days as well, or is that just when you discovered it?
Maybe a year or two after that. Yep. So 2016.
Okay, so many years into it, and are you able to say what you were working on prior to coming over to For Fun Labs?
I worked for a company called VR Studios. Due to the pandemic, they no longer exist. They did location-based VR entertainment, so it wasn't really consumer-focused. We sold things to like Dave & Buster's, as these big simulator rides. Some very fun stuff. They released a lot of really big projects, worked with theaters and all sorts of stuff around the world. And that was a lot of fun, but, the pandemic just essentially shut all of their operations down, because you can't have, a public thing where you're moving people through a VR thing with the pandemic going on. So.
Throwing things on their face and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, cleaning it, people couldn't even go out to those centers, and no one was about to put on a headset that someone else had just taken off their face, no matter what kind of cleaning solution you provided them. So
completely understood. I work at a martial arts gym, so preaching to the choir for sure. Cool. And for you, Natasha, sometimes the people that didn't maybe start in VR, we talk to a lot of people in the VR industry that maybe started in animation or other things and transition over to the VR world, or, in the case of some people, even Disney Imagineers, that kind of stuff.
I was going to say Imagineers.
And sometimes that outside knowledge brings really good perspectives into the industry. So how did you discover VR, and what did you start in, and when did you come to the industry? I know it's a loaded question, but what's your background in this?
Sure. So I have a a diverse background in a variety of different businesses, but specifically in the startup space is sort of where I came from. And I spent over 8 years in emerging automotive technology. So at a Boston company, ClearMotion, working on an active suspension system for automobiles, making it like a smoother ride. And then I also spent some time at a company called Perceptive Automata, where we were focused on using your human behavior to make sort of predictions about where the human was going to be going in the road next. So a lot of really deep tech, and at both of those companies and some other startups along the way, helped with operations, sales and marketing, partnerships, you name it, all the things I do today at For Fun Labs. My first exposure to VR was actually to see like future office space in 3D. That's I think the first time I put on a headset, and then I also experienced it through HR software as well. And then ultimately, when I came to FFL and got my own headset, that's when I started trying the different games, and I think 11 was probably the first game I played, and then, ventured into some of the other sports games, Walkabout, Golf Plus, Win Reality, Beat Saber, of course, you name it. And
so I'm sorry if I missed it. In what year was that you discovered VR or tried it and came over to For Fun Labs, or FFL, as you'll say? So
probably about somewhere like 3 to 4 years, like put a VR headset on ago. And then I've been at For Fun Labs for a year.
Understood. That's awesome. That's
What's
awesome.
Cool is you've also used VR in an actual true work capacity, not just 100% gaming and then being told you can also work on it.
That really shows the, I guess, the enterprise.
I'm pretty intrigued about how do you stumble upon, I want to go backwards in time a little. How do you stumble upon working for a company building like state-of-the-art electronic stabilization modulators, flux capacitors for cars? I mean,
something you go to school for? Or,
it sounds like science, very like robotics. Or
it was honestly a fantastic job to have, and I was there for 5 years, so I really helped that company grow, from 10 to 200 people, and really learned a lot about just operations at a fast-paced technology startup. I found that job while I was getting my MBA at Babson, and met them and got introduced to them. And, it seemed like a great fit with everything I was doing in school, along with what they were looking for in the role. It probably helps. My brother is an engineer, so I feel like maybe I just grew up around, this type of environment, and people like that. So I think that maybe gives me an advantage over somebody who's not used to working in such a technologically, sophisticated environment.
That's quite the background.
I love the resumes of people who work in the VR industry. I really do. And like to Philip's, to give you some kudos, you're risk taking in the VR space. So it's one of those things that we've discovered. Either you really believe it 100%, and you go all in a market that's these
still
you all
growing.
Are the people that are proving it works. So. Hats off for taking those risks.
Yeah. I mean, you see it with anybody who's working in the VR industry. I said at the top, it's not because you're chasing money. It's because,
you could get
you can see the future in
doing
it.
Something else, I'm sure.
But you see
the short term.
Exactly. You're more planting the seeds, understanding that the industry is still in its infancy. It's still got so much potential to grow. And you're just laying the foundation to be one of the big boys, which For Fun Labs with 11 table tennis messed up once already. It was going to happen. We almost did a whole episode saying Elvin instead of 11. That was quite the slip up. The OG days.
I heard about that. Like, did you think it was named after a person or what?
No. We had been jokingly because we were playing.
Was it Elvin Assassin?
Elvin Assassins, and then we were playing your game heavy. We just started calling it just to be funny. It started with calling it, let's play Elvin. Elvin table tennis.
I don't think,
and then we totally forgot.
Yeah, maybe a year went by until we reviewed it. So you say that name for a year,
and even said in the Like, I don't know why they call it Elven. There's no elves.
Funny.
It was pretty stupid.
Yeah, but we heard about it. We heard about it.
Yeah,
for sure. But something that I love about this game, Bounce Shot. Now, your new game that just came out, it's got meta avatars. That's something that
it does.
I love it. Not only with your character that people
my guy's
play
sophisticated.
with. Yeah, so you got a nice looking guy in a nice suit, but also the NPCs around and everything like that. So what led to that decision to go with meta avatar integration versus building your own in-house avatars, or going with something like, Ready Player Me or something like that?
Well, we wanted a full-featured avatar system, and we were looking around. There's not a lot of people who actually offer that, and Meta was really pushing for the metaverse and all that stuff at the time. And the promise of cross-platform avatar solution that didn't allowed customization. You could sort of express yourself outside the app. It brings that into the app. Also, the fact that we could potentially use those same avatars across the two games, so you can kind of represent yourself in the same way. That's basically what led to the decision to use the meta avatars in general. So
that's awesome. And
I'm very happy with that decision.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of them. I think it's cool having that consistency across apps. Even in like
and when your friends, the only downside to really create your own is when it's something that's a social game, and then your friends come in and you don't recognize them yet by their new avatar, because it could be anything, versus the minute you come into this game, I know it's you. I just look at your guy and be like, all right, there you are, let's go.
And sometimes it can create some pretty funny environments, like a game like Drop Dead the Cabin, where you're fighting zombies, but you have meta avatars without, maybe they don't have legs, but it's just funny. And I love it. So the second I saw that, something I always loved with like 4 VR games. So I saw that in Bounce Shot and I said, I'm instantly interested. And from the technical side, was that a tough thing to implement and get functioning well, or is it a pretty easy integration with the, like the meta avatar SDK and everything like that?
So I'm not the developer who actually implemented the avatars. So I can't really comment on exactly how difficult it was. I know we've had some issues specifically related to like cross-platform with Pico. Pico is an Android-based headset, and so there's a lot of similarities between Quest and Pico. But there's some other platforms that are having some issues there, technical side of things. So I don't think it was the most seamless process, but I don't think it was, the worst
break it situation either. And is Bounce Shot just out right now on the Quest, or is it out on Pico right now and other headsets as well?
Quest and Pico, yes.
Okay. And is there plans to go to PC VR or anything like that, or sticking with the big Android standalone headsets?
Definitely plans. I'm not sure how much I can comment on that.
Understood.
So
we know some people are gonna comment whether it's coming out to the PlayStation VR. I'm sure.
Yeah, you'll be hearing the questions: is Steam VR when? PlayStation VR when? all that stuff. But
So actually, just a note to that: we've noticed that a lot of the streamers use PC VR. I'm not saying we're going to support PC VR. Don't quote me anything like that. But we did notice that a lot of the people that were playing early on were like, hey, I wish I could play on PC VR just so that my streamer audience can I can sit here the entire time tethered to my PC and have all my recording software and everything do the work. So anyways, just a note on that.
Yeah, I feel like for content creators, we're Quest 2 only users. We don't even have PC VR. So we're kind of in the minority for content creators, but I feel like content creators are also a little bit more of like the hardcore user. Whereas like the largest player base is still standalone, but the content creators themselves, maybe they're a little bit more PC VR because they're the hardcore user.
They want those best graphics they can squeeze out for the power they have behind them.
But that might not mean that that's the largest player base in total either.
No.
Versus
I get it though, for quality of film. And truthfully, it's like sometimes you film something in standalone and it's not doing it justice. Versus you look at the stuff filmed in PC VR, and probably even the worst film does it a lot better justice.
So having worked in both environments, where for VR studios, we were very focused on making the highest quality content. We just throw more PC hardware at it. there's a really big difference when you start working on quests. It's like going back to, you're stepping a couple generations back in terms of what you have available for performance. And it is kind of annoying that you get some really good games like Half-Life Alyx that just, they're not going to be coming out to any sort of standalone headset anytime soon. And they're really great games. So it would be, we're looking forward to hopefully Quest 3, Quest 4 maybe, where we can get some really good, some of those old, older PC titles actually on the standalone stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm still
itching.
impressed though with some of the stuff I see on the standalone.
Mm-hmm.
For knowing what it has for power and to see the result, I'm like, this is pretty friggin' incredible.
Absolutely. And something that I'm itching to know, it was one of the first things I thought when I saw that this was the team behind Bounce Shot. I thought, how do you go from table tennis to a beer pong-esque game? So what inspired that decision that our next game following after table tennis is going to be Bounce Shot, like I said, a more beer-esque game? I don't know if whichever one of you is better able to comment on that, but I was dying to know.
I'll take that one. So 11 table tennis, as you guys stated, is, a one-to-one sports simulator of table tennis. And we do see two audiences with it, a very serious, devoted, almost professional table tennis player. And then we see, the casual user. And so we want to continue to keep that game, as realistic as possible and to simulate table tennis for tournaments and esports as that game continues. We, of course, are going to keep developing aspects of it for the casual user as well. Different IAP and maybe some environments or different things like that, but continue to develop for both audiences. That leaves us with not having as much, fun, right, to put into games. We're called For Fun Labs. And so, Bounce Shot takes the ping pong ball and a little bit of what is so fun about table tennis and gives us sort of this creative title where we can really push the limits a little bit more than we do with 11.
That makes sense. That makes total sense.
Yeah, especially if it's for fun labs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You look at, the popularity of social VR games, it's a big thing that keeps player bases coming back is just simply, regardless of what's going on in the game after the social element, but just the social element itself. So I feel like, 11 table tennis maybe went a little bit more the sports simulation side, whereas Bounce Shot definitely feels like it's leaning a bit more into just social, have fun, hang out, even with like the little side stuff on the quest. We're throwing basketballs and playing with the arcade games for a minute. So I get it too. And a big thing that I feel like carried 11 table tennis was its, you mentioned people using it for almost professional reasons. When we reviewed it, we instantly had people contacting us like, I trained people online with the game. Like I used it to practice my shot. It had that dedicated audience. Do you see, Bounce Shot hitting that same level of popularity and dedicated audience that 11 table tennis had?
Sure. It certainly can. It's more focused on social, right? It can accommodate 6 to 8 people, depending on what environment you're in. But we did start running tournaments this weekend, and we sold out our first, there's no cost for it. We filled up our first tournament this weekend, and if there is that dedicated group who wants to play, in a more serious way, we did build the arena, right, and is one of the environments so that we can host beer pong tournaments if we want to. But then we have the arcade and the roof deck, which are really fun places where you can just go hang out with friends. So, similar to 11, it can certainly accomplish both, but we tend to think it will be a more social crowd who just want to go in there and hang out. I was playing on Friday and wanted to catch up with a business partner. So we made a private room and we played beer pong and, had a 30-minute meeting playing beer pong, which was fantastic, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was referencing before. It's what's going on inside the game. It's not that it's irrelevant, but you're more using it as a social platform to just meet up with your friends or family.
I love the rooftop one.
Yeah,
that's my favorite one.
Mm-hmm.
You got money when you playing freaking Bounce Shot on top of a roof.
Absolutely.
Penthouse.
So
yeah, you're not worried about losing the balls, right?
You know what I'm curious of? Since you're just coming off the tournament, are there any players that are as good as the legendary difficulty player currently playing this game that you know of?
That's been able to beat that bot?
Or on the development side, are any of the developers as good as that legendary setting on the
doing that little flick it does?
So that's always my go-to thing, is trying to beat the legendary bot. We made him as close to perfect as we thought was, without making him absolutely perfect. I don't think I'm quite as good as him in terms of landing shots, but there is some tricks I can use to sneak some bounce shots through him. So I've definitely beat him, many times. But
yeah, because he doesn't miss his default shot, and he doesn't really like to bounce shots.
He's got like a 99% win rate. The guy's crazy.
And I like the unique. Well, I don't know if these are unique rules. So is there official beer pong rules that you model this off of? Because we had kind of discussed this on our episode on Monday, that I feel like beer pong rules
I've
different rules at different parties.
Parties.
Sometimes you have to bounce. Some parties you don't have to bounce. Sometimes you have to bounce before a certain spot.
I've never been allowed to smack a ball out of the way.
Never been able to smack a ball out of the way. I've never gotten 2 cups taken away for the bounce either.
No.
But I was like, maybe there's official beer pong rules.
The International Federation of Beer Pong.
So were these unique gameplay elements that you added into the game to make it more fun, or are these modeled after like an official rule book somewhere?
Yeah, I can answer that. So this is modeled off of basically internal company experience. We did do a lot of research on the official beer pong rules, but as you might expect, there isn't any like official beer pong rules. There is a couple teams that exist in different colleges that kind of have their own official thing, but it's nothing as official as like ping pong or other games. It's more of just, a couple guys actually, they're old frat bros, so they get together and they're just really good at beer pong, so they wanted to turn that into something a little more official. It's also very much an American thing more. There are, I think, other, in Europe and other places, it's a game as well, but it's definitely not as popular as American colleges. And each college does seem to have some different things. To that aspect, one of our biggest internal things is giving you the ability to try to control those. While we didn't release with that, house rules, being able to sort of set your, what you want to do in the game in terms of how you might have played in college or how you might have experienced beer pong, is definitely a lot of feedback we've got about that. So
yeah, custom games would be fun. I like the rules of the bouncing and the 2 cups, because to me, I think if it was the rules that I played at, random parties and
Wouldn't
stuff,
be as fun.
No, to me, that bouncing element, it creates, and the 2 cups away if you bounce it, and the swatting, if only if they bounce it, it creates very unique elements that I think having the option for random custom settings and stuff like that, of course, the more the merrier in settings options, but I like the house rules too. I think it creates a very replayable game environment.
And even the current settings, we commented on Monday that, you've given a good foundation for, like, if you can't throw hard, you've got it so you can adjust the power in the settings. You can obviously change the teleport to smooth, which is our go-to right off the bat.
Yeah, I was getting some controller drift, so I was teleporting around for a second, so I went boop right into smooth, the walk locomotion for sure.
I also I actually appreciate it's actually not sold as, quote unquote beer pong. It is its own thing.
Well, it never shows that it's beer in there.
No, it could be tea. It doesn't matter.
Anything.
Like I've said to you, I'm here to win. I'm not here to worry about what's in that cup. Just tell me what the rules are.
I don't want my vision getting blurry as I'm trying to beat the expert or legendary bot or anything like that.
No. 2 other players.
So with the last tournament that happened over the weekend, is the plan to keep doing those type of tournaments or leagues or that type of event? Or is it more of a one-off thing, test the waters?
So we decided to plan kind of a first month of tournaments with sort of a big focus on the 3-day weekend next weekend in the States, Labor Day. get ready for it. We're going to give away a Quest 3 to the winner. So they just have to wait a little bit for that to come out, but that's a pretty amazing prize for playing pure pong. So we'll do that tournament next weekend. And then we have 2 more. And then we want to see what the community wants, what the feedback is, and then we'll go from there.
So,
and
anybody off for the holiday?
How does one enter such said tournament?
Yes, and what's the date? One day. What's the details of the tournament? Because you've got him interested with that prize winning. He's out here beating the expert bot, losing to the legendary. I think
I'll practice every day for Quest 3. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah. So if you join our Discord, there is a tournament registration channel, and that's where you find all the information about the tournaments and registering.
Awesome. And what's the easiest way for somebody to find your Discord or even social medias and stuff like that to follow updates on this type of stuff?
Sure. So we're Bounce Shot. We've got bounceshot.com, Bounce Shot VR on Instagram and TikTok. And then we've also got Facebook. We've got it all. So Twitter, we're putting information out across all of those.
Awesome.
That's exactly how I found their Discord.
Mm-hmm. What's going on the Twitter? Just going on.
No,
there?
I just went on. I googled
Bounce
Shot, and then I was like, "Oh, let me change that to Bounce Shot VR," and I still found it.
Awesome. So yeah, very easy to find, and
they got the whole row. You click. I think Reddit too. I think if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're on Reddit as well. And if you I think we usually put our link tree up there. So once you click on that, that's the links to everything. If you need to get to the Oculus store or tournaments or Discord, it's all there.
It was painless.
Yes, and that's a hell of a prize. Like we said before, Quest 3.
That's no joke. Yeah, that just usually out of fairness, not because like I'm really good, but because just of what we do. I'm like I don't always feel good about doing contests and stuff to win something.
Were you shameless on this one?
You got to earn it. It's not like you just go like a page or you're talking a tournament. So it kind of morally changes the rules a little for me because it's not like I'm a professional of anything like that. So
absolutely.
But the like contests and stuff, no, I never do those. Even though it kills me sometimes because people are like giving away fantastic stuff.
Yeah, no, but call me crazy, but I think this game has a lot of potential with tournaments in general, with or without prizes like that.
How much fun did we have the first time we played it?
Exactly.
And the amount of fun level from when we stopped playing it last night, it was pretty consistent. I mean, we were in the same room and we were playing bots, even though we're both there.
Yeah, we were both like, "Oh, I'll get off," and then we do one more round. Just
I really want to beat that legendary. So mad props to Philip for beating the legendary. Because
well, have you beaten him yet? I didn't check. I didn't get.
Oh yeah, I've over the course of development, I've beaten him multiple times, but it is difficult. It is still a challenge for me. It is not something I do consistently. So.
Understood it. The game's got so much potential with leagues and even for us with because the rooms hold up to 8 people. So like a Discord meetup.
Have our own little Discord tournament. We will not give away a Quest 3. I'll
multiple
put that
tables.
out there right now.
But even without those type of, prizes, hey, I get it for the one that it's the first one, the first big one, or the game's just launching. But I think the game's just got a lot of potential in that regard in and of itself. And in general, for either one of you or even both of you, what is it about Bounce Shot that you think makes it special over, maybe other social simulation games or other similar-esque games?
Yeah, I can take that. In general, I think the game beer pong is very easy to get into. It's very immediately understandable. And so we notice this, even if you show small kids who's obviously never played beer pong before, they actually were one of our biggest fans when we showed it to them because they just immediately, I can pick this up, and the goal is just to make the ball into all the other cups. Once I eliminate all those cups, the game ends. I've won. Now there's a lot of stuff we can add on to that. There's a lot of game modes and stuff we can play with. I can't talk too much about that, but we just as a base game, the game is very pick-upable, in general. So, and also the fact that you are sitting, across the side of the table, just like 11 VR, that gives you a very interactive experience with that other person. You're kind of sitting there with them for a while, kind of talking crap to each other, trying to mess with each other's games. It really encourages the social aspect, and that's really what we wanted to focus on, was bringing people together, making it very seamless to get into rooms with each other, and making it so that the social aspect is really a mainstay of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the potential's there, 100%.
The social aspect, definitely. When I found out you could have more than 2 people in there, I'm like, this is perfect.
And I'm correct that it's up to 8, right? I didn't misspeak there.
6 to 8, depending on the room. If I heard
exactly.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. That's a very generous number. But you see that there's multiple tables. It makes sense, but that's really cool. I think that a room full of 8 people,
dude, there's going to be bounce shot leagues, like bona fide.
That's what I'm saying. It's people are going to get really good. What I would love to see is, you mentioned it's not the most popular game outside of America. Beer pong itself. It'll be interesting to see.
Other countries just call it drinking.
Yeah, yeah. We call that Tuesday. No, it'll be interesting if you start to hear of any Europeans who are like, "Hey, never played beer pong before, but because of bounce shot, we tried it out and it was a ton of fun," or anything like that. It'll be interesting to see if it spreads the sport around a little bit,
like cornhole.
Yeah.
That is kind of our dream, is that hopefully we find other players in other countries that have never heard about the game, but because they've played the VR experience, they get together. In fact, when we went to this the Denver show, we were showing off the game, and then we had a physical table, and a lot of the kids that were at that show came up, and they immediately started, after they played the game, just started going over to that table and trying to set up their own game. We had cups available for them to try to do that. So you could tell they were having a lot of fun outside of the game, and they were probably, when I left that event, I heard these group of people walking away from, it was totally unrelated. The conference was not surrounding beer pong, but they were saying, "Hey, you guys want to go play some beer pong? Let's set up a table or whatever." So it was great to hear that people.
Yeah, that was VR MLCon, where they had one of the last. It was in Denver in June, and they had one of the last Echo Arena matches. So it was pretty cool to be at that.
Rest in peace, I guess, to Echo Arena as well. And nobody ever says that you have to put beer in the beer pong cups. I mean, I've even played it before where they just move the cup to the side and then reuse the same cup, because it's getting dirty with the ping pong ball thrown around everywhere. But a great thing.
You guys are helping college students across the world.
Yes, practicing before the, in the off season of the summer break and the winter break and stuff like that. I mean, really all you need to do to play in real life is red Solo cups, water, and a ping pong ball, and you're good to go. So it's hopefully it spreads the popularity of the game a little bit farther than the borders of North America. But
how could it not?
We think so. I mean, with 11 table tennis, both communities really influence each other. We have several stories of people who learned how to play 11 and then go out into the real world and take table tennis lessons and start to play table tennis in real life. So I'm sure we will see the same with beer pong. People discover the game, or bounce shot, discover the game through us and decide, hey, let's try this in real life too.
So then it poses the question, nobody has to answer it, but I'm just going to put it out there from a marketing standpoint. What better thing to be able to acquire than an official bounce shot setup? Comes with the cups, comes with the ping pong balls.
Well, just picture the convention setup when you're showing it off. You have the headset, and then you have the table with the real life.
I'd be playing the real life one too,
and then going back and forth. You could have quite the convention setup with a booth too. So the game's got endless marketing potential. And again, you never call it beer pong. It's bounce shot. Nope. So there's leaving it ambiguous. I actually think is for.
No, I actually liked that.
I think it's definitely for the better. And something I was curious about. My impression is that you'll be able to take the physics of 11 table tennis and just apply it right to this and to pickleball and other future games. But is that the actual case? Were you able to just reapply the physics and the engine of 11 table tennis, or was this built completely from the ground up?
So bounce shot had a kind of interesting history in general, and so we took originally 11 and we started from that project and tried to build beer pong on top of it. And there was a bunch of technical issues with that, mostly the fact that 11 was very focused on getting one person across the table from another person. And we wanted to make Bounce Shot a lot more social than that and really focus on bringing a lot of people together in one space. And so we were, kind of working around a lot of the code, doing a lot of shifting around. So we ended up starting the project from scratch. So it is a fully from scratch project, using, all of its own things to make all that work. But we did bring in all of the physics code from 11 to do a lot of the simulation. So all of the ball simulation is pretty much copied from 11. There is some differences, some minor differences, but we heavily focused on making sure that the ball felt correct, that it hits the cups, that the cups react correctly, that the bounce of the ball sort of feels how you'd want to, and very important for a throwing game, that the throwing itself is very accurate. There's a lot of technical challenges on that people think would be really easy when you throw stuff, but the way that VR tracks your hands with the two different internal IMU sensors and the absolute tracking combination sometimes just throws some hitches if you do it in this naive approach. So we definitely spent a good amount of time making sure that the throwing of the experience and the physics and stuff was up to speed with what For Fun Labs is, known for. So
yeah, if you go from 11 table tennis, then you throw a ball and it bounces all over the room. I don't think that's the expectation people have.
No, I had, knowing who developed, my expectation of the physics part of it, I'm like, I expect nothing. This is kind of rude, but I mean, realistically,
well, unfortunately, when you make a good product, you set an expectation.
Correct. I'm like, you have set the bar for the ball physics, so I'm like, I don't want to see this.
I don't expect anything less. Yeah. Yep. And I think that's
so I was
why
pleased.
Well, I think that's why you were able to do good right off the top. He kicked my ass against when we went 1v1, and then you were able to win all the way up until the expert bot, of course, as we referenced. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, you beat the expert.
Yeah.
Didn't
take my kudos where I got it.
Yeah, and then weren't able to beat the legendary. You weren't that good yet. But I think the only reason that you were able to pick up this game and instantly do good is because it's so true to life. It's a game you played before, so the ball physics and the throwing physics are so good that it's like, well, yeah, I've done this before. There's no there was never one time that I was like, I bounced it there. It should have gone there, but it didn't go there.
It went where you put it.
Or it cheated me on the throw. Like everything felt real. And that's very, very impressive. That's why my impression was, they had to have just been able to use the same physics because it's so good. And also props to you, to the team for creating a product that you can go into. You load in and I mean, you're able to play like somebody that's played before within 5 minutes. It's got a very quick onboarding and, from fire up to in, it's like, there's not like a 30-minute tutorial, a bunch of complex mechanics. It's you just have to know how to throw and the rules. So it's a very quick experience to get into. So huge props for that. And kind of on that, how long did the game take to develop from idea where, hey, we're going to make a beer pong-esque game to, you released it last week?
Yeah. So I think we're talking about this game before I showed up in about 2020. And I think we spent some time on that model that was going to come from 11 and then realized we needed to scrap it. So the current version took about 2 to 2.5 years to develop.
And the whole project in total, counting what you had to scrap? How about that?
Yes, that would be 3.5 years. About a year's worth of work.
Well, the game's polished. The physics and stuff like that is, like we said, very tight. So
graphics are nice.
Like we said, some smooth meta avatar implementation. Whether that was easy or not, the end result is definitely nice. So that's awesome. And how big was the team that worked on Bounce Shot?
So it's a fairly small team. It's 2 full-time devs, so Philip and another developer, Andrew, and then we have a game producer, QA, and then of course our kind of like leadership and marketing team and everything like that. So it's a very, very small team. I'd also like to go on the record and say that the team is entirely different than the 11 table tennis team. A lot of people in the 11 community often ask, like, why are you creating this game? And why aren't you working on our game? And, we are constantly developing 11 and continue to. It's in a much more mature state, right, than something like Bound Shot, and takes a lot of time and development to get it exactly right.
So I love to hear that.
Yeah. That's a new approach I see more and more studios taking, where
they don't abandon a game.
Nope.
They don't even move maybe one or two people.
Take one from the project, move them
whoever
over
came up with the idea or whatever like that, whoever's going to lead it, or maybe you even bring somebody outside for that. But it seems like that's an approach. We talk a lot with the studio Combat Waffle Studios. They make Ghost of Tabor, and that was something that they're doing for their games. They're very vocal about it with their community too, because they deal with the same problem.
And I get it, man. You got a game you love, and we've all as gamers have experienced when people start backing away or hand off the project and it falls apart.
That's the killed by Google method. You build up a great product and then all of a sudden that team moves on.
I do think it's important that if that is the case, that people should know that 11 Table Tennis will always remain.
It's the whole same
staffed
team
accordingly, and they're not, going to ever degrade their product just to work on something else. That's huge.
Yeah. No, thank you for making that distinction. I think that's the correct approach to it. So.
But poor Philip, he's been living, obviously.
Of course, we share information, right? Like ball physics and things like that, but, the different teams working on each project, and it's working well for us.
That's awesome. And so are you able to say how big the whole For Fun Labs team is at this point with both games in total?
Yep. So we're just around 20 people. And then, we have a couple of different contract resources and things like that. But that's our whole dev team plus, myself and business side of things. So it's an extremely small team. You could consider us an indie studio, certainly at that size.
Well, indie studio putting out top level.
Here's the thing
products.
with VR though. Indie studio and VR could be 2 people.
Yeah.
Versus flat screen where, it's 200 people.
Yeah, I guess you could say by the VR industry, 20 is still indie, but it's like
it's
like a medium sized indie.
But it's the product you produce that I think really defines whether you're an indie or I won't go by like size. I can't. But when you put out a home run product and your studio has already proven it, with 11 Table Tennis, you couldn't go around any corner without reading somebody recommending it as one of the greatest games. And I'm not even into ping pong.
Yeah, but we had it's one of the highest rated games. Always recommended.
Absolutely loved it. So. I just suck at ping pong, so this gave me an opportunity to not suck so bad. But
there's bots in 11 too. You should play the AI robot in 11. There's no mercy from that robot either. So it'll help you get better.
Yeah, when we had played
this.
Yeah, when we had played before, we had when we reviewed it, we did a lot of 1v1 against each other, then we did AI matches, then tried our hand at some other player ones with what I'll describe
other real life people.
Hey, some days you're the hammer, some days you're the nail, and that
you know what I will say though,
we're the nail.
Probably really important to note because I played some really good players. Like I just got mollywopped, and but everyone was respectful. I had not one instance of even with them just being animated that nobody was being a jerk. It was, and then the amount of people that were willing to play again and stuff like that.
I even had people
great community
scale back on their butt whooping of me and start to try to gesture to me better serves
how
to do. It.
Yeah,
it was which I get it. They're teaching me as I play. That's how bad they're beating me. But it was actually really cool. They're like, no, dude, it's going to be better if you do this. And
it's a great community.
They started to do serves back that would be a little bit more hittable. After the very obvious that they were significantly better than me. So no, great community in 11 Table Tennis. I think that
that's going to trickle and carry over. Yeah, because if you love 11 Table Tennis, why would you not play Bounce Shot? Well,
so what's the future of Bounce Shot look like? Do you guys have more plans for updates? Or
that can be talked about anyways. Because I see out of order. I see out of order signs on video games.
And I instantly go, I hope that's playable one day. Yeah. So what's the future plans with Bounce Shot? Like we said, that you're able to talk about.
There's a couple of things I've mentioned in this podcast so far. We have house rules and multiple new game modes that are actively in development. Those game modes, I talked to some people in the Denver conference about them, so some people in the wild probably know
in the wild
some of them. Yeah. I'm not sure how much I want to talk about those here, just so that we're not committing to anything specific. But we do have a lot of great plans for interesting new game modes. I mean, there's a lot you can do with cups on a table, moving those cups around, giving you different small objectives that keep everything casual, but are also just interesting twists. So we definitely have that coming out.
Can't wait.
Imagine a bounce shot story mode.
Yes.
Why not?
Oh, it's a lot of potential.
I'll just add to that too.
Sure.
You know, we want to hear from our users too, right? So join the Discord. Let us know what your feedback is, what you'd love to see. You know, we can't obviously develop everything. We just told you the size of the team, but you know, we want to, you know, whatever people ask for, and you know, in a high, you know, in demand, and what we think also makes sense in line with what we're sort of planning on for development. You know, we'll try to implement as much as possible.
That's awesome.
I got a tournament related question. So with tournament play, is there a fixed setting that forces all settings to the same, or is it really doesn't matter because you're only talking about like power, throw ability, and movement?
Yeah, that's actually a feedback that we had early on. There's a aim assist in the game that we want to make sure that is very clearly demonstrated to people when they have it on or when they have it off, so that you can play against other people in a fair way, and that in tournaments you can enforce that that's on or off. It's not currently in the game in this initial release, but it will be there soon, so that, you know, we can do tournaments a little bit more strict.
But that's a great example of listening to feedback and boom, right away on the
that was my first
something.
thing with whenever I see tournament, I'm like, ooh, usually there's a very, like, I know in Counter-Strike days we would use the cal setting, so once you locked it, the server would reboot with everybody's settings pretty much the same in the server.
But sometimes the only way you figure out those things is to put it out and get the feedback, and you're all doing the right thing. You put
I love
it
that
out.
they're having tournaments with us. This is freaking awesome.
You're taking the feedback, you know, doesn't mean that you're, like you said, doesn't mean you're going to be able to do every single thing, but you're listening, you know, you're encouraging people, go and put it in there. And if there's something you want to see, let us know. If there's something you think should be better. And again, clearly you're taking action on that. So that's awesome. So if you haven't checked out Bounce Shot yet, wicked fun social VR game. I think a lot of potential, both just in social casual play.
Great competitive side.
Correct.
Stress-free competition.
I think it hits that potential where you could go the competitive player. You know, you could be that person who does the leagues and the tournaments and gets really good at it. Like, you know, yourself over here, there's potential with you in this one. But, you know, myself, I'm not the best at it, but it's still a lot of fun. I can just go in there and just chat. Who cares if I win or lose, or if I'm even able to beat the bot? I can just have a fun time hanging out. So that's awesome. So like I said, if you haven't checked out Bounce Shot yet, definitely go do that. Follow their social media, join their Discord to get feedback.
Easy to follow. If any doubt, just Google Bounce Shot and you're going to find a.
So something I have to ask, I'd be hard pressed to not, you know, before we let you go, and totally understandable if you're not able to talk about this, but are you able to tell us a little bit more about your pickleball plans, like when you would like to see that game release? And is that also going to be an additional new team, or is it going to be, you know, people migrating to it? What's the plans with pickleball, or is it still just way early on being talked about?
We can give a couple details, but not too much information. It is a separate team. It obvious, like, we'd be foolish not to try to use physics from 11 and transform those. So we are using physics from 11. The game name is Pickleball Pro. It has a website too, and it also has social media attached to it as well. We've shown a couple of the game modes. So it will have different environments. Cathedral is really cool, along with the Sky Park, and then of course an arena. We're hoping to have an App Lab version out, hopefully before the end of the year. So, and hopefully that team doesn't kill me for saying that, but
well, nothing in stone.
You said hopefully. I think that we're very clear.
Disclaimer
that if everything went in
Philip
the perfect
shaking his
case,
head like those are poor guys.
Yeah. If everything went according to plan and in a perfect world, you would. That doesn't mean it will. That's just what you hope to see, correct?
That's what we hope to see.
Exactly.
So
it's nothing nothing set in stone. But pickleball, I think, has a lot of potential with popularity. So internally, you're doing a good job picking the little niche sports that maybe aren't the most, like, not seeing them on primetime ESPN or anything like that, but it's sports that people are familiar with. They have a dedicated following, and I think that those are sleeper hits in VR.
Wait until they can have their own game hub where people can meet, and then I'm just planning your own future. Don't
teleport
mind me.
to whatever.
But
game.
you know what I'm saying? Similar to, like, not to take a play from 4VR, but something similar to that, where if you both own darts, you can go to darts.
You just walk through the hallway, pew, teleport in there.
But I'm seeing the connection with this, sports type themed.
And I think it would be crazy to not use the success that you built with the physics of 11 table tennis to do it on the ground
I'd
up.
Put
just
that
on
anything that I could.
If I was, all of you internally, I'd be going, what games involve a ball and throwing? And we're gonna nail it. Like, if there's balance in it too,
or rackets, right? Because table tennis is the racket. So.
That's true. So I guess you'd already have some hitting mechanisms down too. So there's a lot of potential. Yeah.
So maybe it can be answered, maybe it can't. But was there ever discussion about hand tracking for bounce shot?
A lot of discussion, yes.
Fair enough.
Is it not at the point yet? I mean, I know we just had the 2.2 hand tracking update. I'm sure the day we hit 3.0, it's going to be a whole different animal. But is it something that it's just still not able to do it with the speed, or is it actually surprisingly almost there?
We are still actively investigating the technical angles, the technical aspects of that. So I can't even really answer that. It really, like you said, it really depends on newer hardware, newer features that were just released. So it's definitely something we are attempting to do, but again, we can't.
Can't commit to or anything. Right. I've been so impressed with the
I
development.
Hear Quest 3.
Yeah.
Talk to me after Quest 3.
I've been very impressed with the development of hand tracking from when we first got our Quest 2.
It didn't work. It was garbage.
Yeah. And then games like Unplugged came out, and there's great utilizations of it in games like Cubism.
Very few games, though, I think are suited. And this is one where I think, dude, you'd go as far as take a ping pong ball and put a string on it. So when you really let go, so your fingers would be spaced perfectly. Put it on a little leash.
But I could see that, still with that throwing or potential for a user to throw their, pull their hand behind their head, and depending on the prediction and stuff. But based off of the developments that have come from,
I want to do that little flick thing. I want them to know I'm doing it.
Based off the developments from hand tracking 1.0 to 2.2, I could totally see in the future for things like Thrill the Fight or even boxing games or anything involving throwing. I could see it getting there, but I could totally see it not being quite there yet. So,
it is kind of annoying because some of the biggest challenges with that are the fact that you are limited in cameras, and whenever you have a throwing game, going behind that camera is really where you lose it. But that being said, Quest 2 is tracking its own controllers that way, so that seems to work pretty good. The difference being, though, that the controllers have internal IMU sensors and your hands don't. So,
a little ping pong Bluetooth accessory.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll sell ping pong ball accessories. It's just a lot of you.
No, but great stuff. I love the potential of bounce shot. It's one of those, if you tell somebody, look, beer pong and VR, and they go, what? And you go, just trust me, go into it. I think that they'll be instantly sold in the first 10 minutes.
It was the same thing with mini golf.
Exactly.
It's one like mini golf and VR. Really, you're gonna tell me it's that much fun? And it's a lot more fun than you would think.
So it might not be the number one thing somebody thinks they're going to love, but the second they go into it, they're going to get it, in my opinion.
Yep.
So,
especially if you
go ahead,
Philip.
I was going to say some things in VR translate really well. I was never into rhythm style games, Rock Band, or the DDR stuff. But my favorite game to this day is Beat Saber in VR. It's just, you just can't beat it, and there's something that translates differently when you actually get into that space and do something that you might not otherwise enjoy outside of VR. So.
And are you a competitive Beat Saber player, like chasing the leaderboards, or you?
No. I can play a lot of songs on expert plus mode, but
no top 5 leaderboards.
No, I'm certainly not a. They would wipe the floor with me 100%. And I do it half as almost an exercise where I'm just like, this really, really gets your heart rate up. So
that's awesome. And I think before you were gonna say something, Natasha.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, the social piece of it, and being able to go into that room, right, with somebody from the UK or somebody from California. I live in Massachusetts. Like, you can really just bring a group of people together that you just can't do normally, right? And if you watch the trailer, like, that's the idea behind the trailer. It's a group of college friends who live around the world, and they have an appointment to play beer pong together, and it's just like they're back in college. So just the potential of that and the experience doing that is just, it's unreal.
I could even see small remote teams doing a meeting. Why not? You're going to be just chit chatting anyway. Might as well have some fun. Yeah, exactly. So I think the potential's endless.
What's great, because you got people who've never played it. You've got kids who are, well, not kids. You have adults in college who are currently playing it, and then you've got people who have long since played it. So it's got all the bases covered.
And it's not beer pong, it's bounce shot. It never says beer or anything like that. In fact, you hit the balls into you land the ball into the cup, it disappears. It's not like your character grabs it, gets dizzy, or any implying anything like that.
There's no alcohol reading.
No. In fact, there's more like you see, like we said, arcade games and throwing some hoops and that kind of stuff. So, before we let Natasha and Philip go, is there anything else you wanted to ask them? I know we've already stolen them for an hour, but
what's another hour on a Sunday, right?
Yeah.
No. I got more than I bargained for. I love the teaser of some of the future projects. I love that your company is
listening to feedback.
Well, listening to feedback, but keeping, I don't want to say, keeping teams in place so that their product isn't going to suffer. And that's a whole new area that I didn't think was important, but now it's become very important.
Because you've seen the other side of when it doesn't go like that. It's not always the best,
absolutely. So. As a consumer, it can be devastating to
when
your
it's
game,
your favorite game,
creating anxiety for the player, thinking that, I already know what's going to happen. So no, and I'm loving the future direction. I wasn't quite sure what we'd hear from next from the team that put out pound for pound one of the best sports games on the Quest headset. And I was shocked, actually. I was like, are you kidding me? This is what they're going to, but then I played it.
That's exactly my point.
I freaking get it. We're up in the social aspect. We're keeping the fun level.
I don't think it has that walkabout aesthetic, but it has that walkabout. You might be skeptical that this game's so good because it's mini golf or
and the fact you can bring in, and that was the other thing I didn't think. Honest to God, it may be 2 to 3 people tops.
6 to 8.
6 to 8 is like, all right, now you can actually have, like I said, somewhere if you wanted to get your frat buddies together, you could and be like, come on, man, from all over the world, the world or the country. So it's, I don't know. It's got a lot of potential. I believe right now as we speak, it's got the 4.7. So I would encourage people to please rate it on the.
Yeah, we always talk about it for our own podcast ratings, but for games, it's even more important. Go, if you enjoy the game, go drop it a 5-star.
Very positive reviews.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Natasha and Philip. We went over, where the listeners can find both the game, but also where to follow along for updates. And definitely sounds like Discord's the place to go if there's any feedback or suggestions you want to give. Doesn't mean again that it'll go in the game, but definitely the developers and the team are listening to it. And can't stress enough, if you're a 11 table tennis diehard, the team has not been touched. That remains
still your product.
Yeah. So thank you both for joining us. That was a great interview. We'd love to have both of you back on in the future when more updates come out, or
for sure,
or when pickleball's ready to go too. So thank you for the interview today. That was great. And can't wait to keep spreading the word about Bout Shot. So for the listeners, thank you for listening. Subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and check you out next week.
Take care.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Awesome.